The rain hammered the windshield like fists of regret, turning the highway into a blurred smear of taillights and despair. Nathaniel gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened, his wife's frail hand limp in his lap as the paramedic sirens wailed behind them. Too late. Always too fucking late. I can't lose you too, he whispered to the empty passenger seat, the words choking out like smoke from a dying fire, but the only answer was the thunderclap that shook his soul loose. He'd sold his soul to the devil of devotion years ago, back when Emily's laughter still echoed through their cramped Brooklyn brownstone like sunlight on the East River. That was before the crash. The drunk driver who plowed through the intersection like a freight train of fate, leaving her body a twisted map of scars and her spirit confined to a wheelchair that creaked like accusations under her weight. Nathaniel had been 28 then, a rising graphic designer with sketches that turned heads in Soho galleries. Dreams of a loft in Williamsburg where he'd paint murals of Electric City nights. But dreams were for men who didn't wake up to feeding tubes and physical therapy sessions that stretched into eternity. Now, at 35, he was a ghost haunting his own life. The brownstone's mortgage payments gnawed at their savings like termites, forcing him to pawn his drafting table for a gig driving delivery trucks through the 5 boroughs, dodging potholes and pothole-sized regrets. Emily's care was a full-time job on top of his shifts, baths that left his back screaming, nights spent adjusting her morphine drip while staring at the ceiling cracks that mapped out his unraveling. "You're my hero, Nate," she'd murmur on her good days, her once vibrant green eyes dulled by pain meds, fingers tracing the lines of his face like she was memorizing a fading photograph. He'd smile, kiss her forehead, and lie through his teeth. "Wouldn't have it any other way, babe." But God, he did. In the quiet hours after she'd drift off, he'd scroll through old photos on his cracked iPhone. Him and Em at Coney Island, cotton candy sticky on their lips, or that rainy wedding in Central Park where they'd vowed forever under a borrowed umbrella. The love was still there, a stubborn ember in the ashes, but it burned differently now. Dutiful, desperate, a chain disguised as a lifeline. He'd stopped going to the gym, his once lean frame softening into the paunch of exhaustion. His buddies from art school had faded into polite texts he never answered. Sex, a relic, replaced by clinical intimacy that left him hollow, staring at the wall while she slept beside him. It was on one of those endless Tuesdays, the kind where the sky hung low and gray over Queens like a bad hangover, that the universe decided to kick him while he was down. Nathaniel was hauling a load of Amazon boxes through the industrial sprawl near the Van Wyck Expressway, his Ford F-150 groaning under the weight, when the skies opened up again. Thunder rolled in like an uninvited guest, and lightning cracked the world in half. He pulled over near a derelict warehouse district, the kind of place where graffiti whispered secrets to the wind, figuring he'd wait out the storm with a lukewarm coffee from his thermos. That's when the semi-truck came barreling out of the downpour, a behemoth sliding on the slick asphalt, tires screaming like banshees as it jackknifed toward his rig. Time fractured. The horn blared, a deafening roar that drowned his heartbeat. He floored the gas, but physics laughed in his face. The impact was biblical. Metal twisting like tinfoil, glass exploding in a hail of shards that sliced his cheek and peppered his arms. His truck flipped once, twice, landing on its side with a crunch that echoed his cracking ribs. Pain bloomed everywhere, hot and immediate, but worse was the helplessness, the thought flashing like neon. Emily needs me. I can't die here. He blacked out to the rhythm of rain on wreckage, the world narrowing to the copper tang of blood in his mouth and the distant wail of sirens that might as well have been echoes from another life. When Nathaniel came to, the world was a haze of blue and red lights, paramedics swarming like ants over sugar. His body was a symphony of agony, left arm numb, right leg pinned under the dash, but someone was there, a voice cutting through the chaos like a lighthouse beam. "Hey, buddy, stay with me. You're gonna be okay. Just breathe." He blinked up at the face hovering over him. Strong jaw shadowed by a day's growth, piercing blue eyes framed by rain-slicked blonde hair, a firefighter's helmet tucked under one arm. The man, mid-30s, built like he bench-pressed fire hoses for fun, had pried open the door with his bare hands, or so it felt, hauling Nathaniel free before the whole cab crumpled. "Name's Alex," the guy said, his voice steady as Brooklyn bedrock, a faint southern drawl softening the edges. "Macon, Georgia." Nathaniel would learn later. Transplanted to the FDNY after September 11th's ghosts chased him north. You picked a hell of a night to play dodge him with a big rig. Nathaniel tried to laugh, but it came out as a wheeze, blood bubbling on his lips. Truck. My wife. She. The words dissolved into coughs, but Alex nodded like he understood the unspoken avalanche. The life waiting at home, fragile as spun glass. Got it covered. Dispatch called ahead. Your emergency contact's been notified. Focus on you now. Alex's gloved hand squeezed his shoulder, firm and unyielding, an anchor in the storm. There was something in those eyes. Not pity but recognition, like he'd stared down his own infernos and come out scarred but standing. The ER at Elmhurst Hospital was a war zone of fluorescent buzz and beeping monitors, the air thick with antiseptic and despair. Nathaniel's fractures were set, stitches pulled taut across his gashes, but the real wound was the phone call from the social worker. Emily was stable, but alone, her home health aide scrambling to fill the void until he could hobble back. Guilt clawed at him deeper than any scalpel, a vice around his chest as he lay in that sterile bed, staring at the drip like it held the answers. Alex showed up 2 days later, off-duty in jeans and a faded Yankees hoodie that hugged his broad chest, carrying a styrofoam cup of decent coffee. Black, no sugar, just how Nathaniel took it, though he'd never said. Heard you were still kicking. Figured you could use this more than the swill they serve here. He pulled up a vinyl chair, legs sprawling like he owned the place, that easy grin cracking the tension like sunlight through blinds. Nathaniel shifted, wincing at the pull in his ribs. You didn't have to. Hell, you saved my ass. Least I owe you is a beer when I can stand without falling over. Alex waved it off, but his eyes lingered, tracing the bruise blooming purple across Nathaniel's jaw. Part of the job. But nah, it's the follow-through that counts. What's the story with the wife? Sounded heavy on scene. The question hung there, simple as a spark to dry tinder. Nathaniel hesitated, the dam cracking. He spilled it all. The accident 5 years back, the endless PT sessions in their Astoria apartment, the way Emily's dreams of teaching yoga had curdled into Netflix marathons and phantom pains. I love her, man. More than my own skin sometimes. But it's like I'm drowning slow, you know? Every day's a fight just to keep the lights on, and I wake up wondering if this is all there is. Alex listened, really listened, his face a map of quiet empathy. No interruptions, no platitudes. When Nathaniel trailed off, voice rough as sandpaper, Alex leaned forward, elbows on knees. Sounds like you're carrying the weight of the world. Nate, ever think about letting someone share the load? Not saying it's easy, but hell, even Superman had Lois. It was the first real conversation Nathaniel had in years that didn't orbit Emily's orbit. Alex talked about his own scars, not the physical ones from a warehouse blaze in Red Hook, but the invisible, coming out in a Bible Belt family that still sent passive-aggressive Christmas cards, the ex who bailed when the PTSD nights got too loud. Firefighting's my armor, Alex said, tapping the tattoo peeking from his sleeve. A phoenix rising from flames. But it don't fix the heart stuff. Something shifted in that cramped room, a current humming under the words. Nathaniel felt seen, not as the caretaker or the survivor, but as a man, flawed, frayed, but whole. When Alex stood to leave, clapping his good shoulder gently, their eyes locked a beat too long, a spark that neither named but both felt. Discharge came a week later, Nathaniel hobbling out on crutches that clacked like judgment on the hospital linoleum. Home was a minefield. Emily's face lit up when he wheeled through the door, but her arms around his neck felt like obligation. I was so scared, laced with the unspoken "don't leave me again." He nodded, murmured assurances, but his mind drifted to blue eyes and a drawl that promised more than survival. Alex texted that night. How's the invalid? Pizza Friday? My treat. No pressure. Nathaniel stared at the screen, thumb hovering, heart pounding like a bass line in a dive bar. He typed back, twisted but breathing. Pizza sounds like salvation. Friday arrived with a chill wind off the harbor, rattling the fire escape outside their third-floor walk-up. Emily was having a rare lucid evening, propped on the couch with her sketchpad. Doodles of impossible sunsets she'd never see from a chair. Go on, Nate. You deserve a night out. Tell that fireman hero of yours I said thanks. Her smile was genuine, but brittle, and guilt twisted in his gut like a knife. The pizza joint was a hole in the wall in Jackson Heights, checkered tablecloths and Sinatra crooning from a jukebox that hadn't been updated since Giuliani. Alex was already there, 2 steaming pies on the table. Pepperoni for nostalgia, veggie for the healthy bullshit, as he put it. They ate like starved men, grease dripping, laughter bubbling up unbidden. Stories of botched rescues and art school disasters, the kind of talk that stitched wounds without trying. As the night deepened, beers loosening tongues, Alex's foot brushed Nathaniel's under the table. Accidental? No, the pressure lingered, deliberate, a question in the arch of his instep. Nathaniel's pulse thrummed, heat rising not from the alcohol but from the proximity. The way Alex's laugh lines crinkled when he teased about Nathaniel's hipster beard phase. When they stepped out into the neon glow, the air electric with unspoken what-ifs, Alex turned, close enough that Nathaniel could smell the cedar of his cologne mixed with yeast from the dough. "You good to get home?" Alex asked, voice low, hand steadying on Nathaniel's elbow. Crutches be damned. Nathaniel swallowed, the city noise fading to a hum. "Yeah, but thanks. For tonight. For everything." Alex's gaze dropped to his mouth, then back up, blue fire in the streetlight. "Anytime, Nate. Doors always open." He leaned in, not for a kiss but a hug, solid, encompassing, the kind that lingered on skin like a promise. Nathaniel pulled back first, cheeks burning, mumbling goodnights as he hailed a cab. Back home, Emily was asleep, the TV flickering infomercials to an empty room. He sank beside her, staring at the wedding band on his finger, the one that suddenly felt heavier than the truck's wreckage. Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with rain-slicked highways and hands that held without asking. Weeks blurred into a fragile rhythm. PT for his leg, which ached like a bad memory. Freelance gigs scraping by on Canva templates when inspiration fled. Emily's good days outnumbered by the fogged ones where she'd snap at shadows, her frustration a mirror of his own. But Alex was the thread holding the frayed edges. Texts turning to calls to coffee runs where they'd park on the Gantry Plaza esplanade, watching ferries slice the East River like silver knives. "You're glowing a bit, Nate," Emily said one afternoon, her wheelchair angled toward the window where autumn leaves pirouette in the breeze. "That fireman's rubbing off on you. Good rubbing off." He chuckled, but it stuck in his throat. "Just a friend, Guy's solid. Helped me see I ain't totally sunk." She reached for his hand, her grip weak but warm. "You deserve more than sunk, baby. Remember Ibiza? That summer we danced till dawn? Find that again. For both of us." Her words were a benediction and a blade, slicing open the truth he'd buried. Their love had morphed into symbiosis, 2 halves clinging to a whole that no longer fit. That night, as he helped her into bed, tucking the quilt around her like a shroud of what-ifs, tears pricked his eyes. "I love you," he whispered, meaning it, but the echo rang hollow. The breaking point came on a crisp November Saturday, the kind where the city smelled of pretzels and possibility. Alex had invited him to a FDNY charity softball game in Prospect Park. Nothing fancy, just gloves and grins under overcast skies. Nathaniel begged off work, telling Emily he'd be back by dinner. She waved him out with a wink, her latest pill cocktail granting her a nap. The field was alive with shouts and the crack of bats, hot dogs sizzling on grills that perfumed the air. Alex spotted him from the dugout, jogging over in cleats and a jersey stretched taut over his chest, sweat already beading on his temple. "You made it. Thought you'd bail for some noble reason." "Nah," Nathaniel grinned, the crutches swapped for a slight limp that barely slowed him. "Figured I owed you a cheer or two." They played casual, Nathaniel on the sidelines at first, nursing a beer, but Alex pulled him into the outfield for the later innings, handing him a glove with a challenge in his eyes. "Catch something. Live a little." The ball came sailing, a lazy arc Nathaniel snagged midair, the leather slapping his palm like fate's high five. The team hooped, Alex's fist bump lingering, thumb brushing knuckles in a way that sent sparks up Nathaniel's arm. After, as the sun dipped low, painting the skyline in gold, they wandered the paths, leaves crunching underfoot, the conversation dipping into deeper waters. "You ever wonder what it'd be like?" Alex asked, voice casual but weighted, kicking a pebble toward the lake. If life dealt you a different hand. No wreckage, no chains. Nathaniel stopped, breath-catching. The park was emptying, joggers and dog walkers fading into twilight, leaving them in a bubble of quiet. All the time, but she's my anchor. Can't just cut loose. Alex turned, close now, the space between them charged like the air before a storm. Anchor or wait. Nate, love ain't supposed to sink you. His hand rose, hesitant, cupping Nathaniel's jaw. Rough thumb tracing the scar from the crash. Eyes searching, pleading. The kiss happened like gravity. Inevitable, consuming. Alex's lips were warm, tasting of Gatorade and want. His free hand fisting Nathaniel's shirt to pull him closer. Nathaniel melted into it, hands roaming the solid plane of Alex's back. A dam bursting after years of drought. It was fire. Tongues tentative then bold, bodies pressing with the urgency of men who'd waited lifetimes. When they broke apart, gasping, foreheads touching, Alex whispered, "I've wanted that since the rain." "Me too," Nathaniel admitted, voice wrecked. "Fuck me too." They didn't go further. Not there, not yet. But the promise hummed between them as Alex drove him home. One hand on Nathaniel's thigh the whole way, a silent vow. Guilt crashed in waves that night. Emily's soft snores a siren song of betrayal as he lay awake. The ghost of Alex's mouth branding his skin. This is wrong, his mind screamed. But his heart whispered finally right. He tossed, turning the what-ifs over like hot coals. Confess to him? End it before it scars? Or chase the light? Damn the fallout? The next morning, Emily was radiant. Pain-free, humming an old Sinatra tune as she directed him in making pancakes from a mix. "You look wrecked, handsome. Good wrecked. Spill." He froze, spatula mid-air, the domesticity a noose tightening. "Just a lot on my mind." The game was fun. She eyed him shrewdly, wheelchair spinning to face him. "Fun's a start. But Nate, I've been thinking. We need to talk." His stomach plummeted. She knew, somehow. I? Not about you, dummy. About us. She wheeled closer, taking his hand, her eyes clear, piercing. "I saw a specialist last month, quiet like, when you were at PT. There's this trial in Boston, stem cells or some sci-fi shit. Could get me walking again. But it's a long shot and it'd mean you going alone for months. Caregiving from afar." Relief warred with fresh guilt, a cocktail sour on his tongue. That's huge. You should have told me." "I know. But watching you fade, it's killing me slower than this chair." Tears welled, but her chin lifted, fierce. "I love you enough to let you live, Nate. Find your spark. If it's with me, great. If not, I'll understand." The words hung, a key to a cage he hadn't admitted he was in. He pulled her into a hug, sobbing into her hair. The first real tears since the accident. Not for loss, but for the freedom dawning like a bruise healing. That confession cracked him open, and Alex flowed in like water to parched earth. Their dates multiplied. Stolen afternoons in Alex's Bushwick loft, a converted warehouse with exposed brick and canvases leaning like forgotten promises. Walks along the High Line where they'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. Alex's fear of forever after his ex's ghosting, Nathaniel's buried sketches surfacing like survivors from a shipwreck. One evening, tangled in Alex's sheets that smelled of pine and possibility, bodies slick and spent, Nathaniel traced the phoenix tattoo with reverent fingers. "This you?" Rising. Alex propped on an elbow, blonde hair tousled, smile crooked. "Trying to. With you? Feels like I already have." Love bloomed fierce and fragile, a garden in cracked concrete. Nathaniel came out to Emily over takeout Thai, her nod steady. "Knew you were fluid, babe. Always did." No anger, just a quiet sadness laced with grace. They'd file papers amicably, co-parent their shared history like adults who'd outgrown the storm. But fate, that cruel curator, had one more twist. Emily's trial started in January. A snowy departure from JFK that Nathaniel saw off with a kiss on her cheek, promising visits. Alone in the brownstone, he dove into redesigning it. Ripping out ramps for open floors, his art supplies spilling across the table like confetti from a second chance. Alex moved in by Valentine's, their first night marked by candles and a ring from a Williamsburg jeweler. Simple tungsten, engraved with, "From the Ashes." Nathaniel wore it next to his old wedding band. a bridge between worlds. Yet shadows lingered. Emily's updates were spotty. Progress, then plateaus, her voice on calls edged with something unspoken. Nathaniel buried worry in work, landing a gig illustrating a queer romance graphic novel, his lines bold and unapologetic for the first time. The call came in April, cherry blossoms mocking the bloom of bad news. Emily's trial had complications, a clot, surgery, relapse. She was stable but needed him, really needed him, the kind of anchor only history could provide. Come, Nate, please. Alex understands, right? He did. Alex packed his bag himself, eyes wet but proud. Go be her hero one last time. I'll be here, waiting. Boston was a blur of beeps and bedside vigils. Nathaniel's hand in hers as she fought. Her grip a lifeline thrown back. Weeks stretched to months, his freelance drying up, savings evaporating like mist. Calls to Alex grew sparse. Time zones, exhaustion, texts turning curt. Miss you. Hang in there. Emily rallied by summer, discharged to a rehab in Cambridge, her steps tentative but real on parallel bars. You saved me again, she whispered one humid afternoon. Wheelchair retired to storage. But the cost was etched in Nathaniel's hollow cheeks, the way his phone stayed silent. Back in Brooklyn by July, the brownstone felt alien. Alex's things gone, a note on the fridge. Needed space to breathe. You chose her. I get it, but I can't be the rebound. Love, The betrayal wasn't Emily's. It was his own. The sacrifice loop closing like a noose. He'd poured everything into rescue. Again, leaving Alex adrift in the wake. Nights blurred into bourbon haze, sketches abandoned, the phoenix on his mind's wall smoldering to ash. Reaching out was agony. Voicemails pleading, texts unread. Finally, desperation drove him to the firehouse, a rainy evening echoing their first collision. Alex emerged, soot-streaked from a call, blue eyes guarded. Nate, what are you doing here? I fucked up? Nathaniel blurted, rain mingling with tears. Sacrificed us for ghosts. But you're no rebound, you're the fate I never saw coming. Please. Alex's face crumpled, the wall cracking. He stepped forward, pulling Nathaniel under the awning. Their hug fierce against the downpour. Thought you'd never ask. But yeah, we rebuild. Together. Emily's wedding to her PT, a soft-spoken woman named Lena, was in October, a small affair in the common with falling leaves as confetti. Nathaniel walked her down the aisle, arm in arm, the past a gentle scar. Proud of you, he said, kissing her cheek. And you, she replied, glancing at Alex in the front row, hand in Nathaniel's. Both of you. That night, back in their loft. Now their murals climbing the walls. Alex traced the dual rings on Nathaniel's finger. Everything, huh? Worth it. Nathaniel pulled him close, lips brushing ear. Every damn bit. 'Cause it led here. In the city of broken dreams and mended hearts, they rose. Not from ashes, but from the rain-soaked grace of second chances. Love, it turned out, wasn't sacrifice's end, but its quiet revolution.